ask you guys like what are because OkCupid just sucks. Tinder is okay.
Hinge is a good one.
Hinge.
Yeah.
So
Hinge is good.
Hinge
I'm
is
not
fun.
on Tinder. I'm on Hinge, Bumble, and OkCupid.
You can also
Do
do
you
the
guys-
old-fashioned
do
I
you
meet
guys
you at
pay,
a
though?
place.
Do you guys pay?
I would never.
I would
No,
never
that's
pay.
the reason why OkCupid sucks for me.
If you pay, though,
I
if it's
pay
not-
for Bumble.
Because I just joined Zeus, and it's like a gay.
Although Match.com
match.
too, like I heard if you
Yeah.
like willing to pay $20, it kind of shows the other person who like, hey, I was willing to pay $20 at the very least. I have enough money where I can afford a $20 a month subscription.
Well,
to
that's
some more
like
shit.
the same thing with Bumble.
It's
I like
it's like
that
a
because
level. You're like, oh, okay, well, at least he has $20 more to spend.
well, I like
I'd rather
Bumble
play-
just because like then I can see who likes me because like then it's like easier because then I'm just like kind of like I still will scroll through random guys. That,
I don't
but,
like knowing who like they just added that on Grindr where like you could see how many people viewed you and it's like, oh shit, like I have 120 guys that like viewed me, like
Yeah,
15 messages.
I have a lot.
It's like
I have a lot of.
fucks yourself.
I have a lot of on Tinder. A lot of likes, but no messages. But it doesn't fuck up my self-esteem that bad because lesbians like never talk to each other first.
Shock.
I'm usually the person who approaches.
Here's something interesting. So we haven't talked about this. So the two of you,
What up?
she talked about her, and you were very open, and we do appreciate it very much. Thank you. But how the two of you, how many abusive relationships have you been in? Because I'm pretty sure statistically, all of us have been in something before.
I'll go. I was
you can
go
go
Ladies
first.
first.
I was I was in an abusive relationship for 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I had to testify against him in court. Like that.
Oh
was,
shit! Did he hit
Wow.
you or what?
He used to hit me. Like,
Get
a
the
lot.
fuck out of here!
Like yeah.
How much bigger than you is he, or is the same size? Or smaller,
He
big-
was like heftier than me. It's a little bit taller than me.
I get it.
But yeah, he would get coked up and fuck me up.
Really?
Jesus.
Yeah.
How many? I guess the first time. What did you say to yourself? The first time.
I will never forget the first time because it was just like we were coming back from Vegas and just got back home from the flight, like literally like at LAX. And I realized like he forgot my Burberry glasses. I was like, babe, you forgot my Burberry glasses at the bar. Duh, duh. And then he's just like, why you always nagging me? Shut the fuck up. Bah, and just slapped me like right there. Like
Jesus.
right there at LAX and like front of people. And like I'm one of those people where violence, I didn't really grow up around that. So like when
Really?
no.
But
But,
you're black.
right. Well, my dad's a pastor, and I just didn't grow up in that environment. So
Really? With a pastor dad? I thought he hit you all the time.
No, I mean,
What? It's not.
I mean,
Spanking is violence.
Spanking is violent.
Yeah, my mom beat the shit out of me with the belt every day. I don't give a shit. She slapped me against the wall once. It's fine. It's not a big deal. You just gotta go, all right, whatever.
I mean, but it wasn't like he was like hitting my mom and shit like that.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
You
He
know,
still
like
hit
that
you as a
type.
kid.
I will
but he
never
like,
ever have Daniel testify for me in an abuse case.
Well, see,
He's like, it's
It's
not a
like
big
we
deal.
still all
Just
your
saying.
Oh, I'm sorry. We've all been in the
a
abuse
big
before.
punch.
Well,
It was a
all of
little
us,
punch.
is, we're like, yeah,
But
whatever.
he seems like a nice
Well,
guy.
I
what
got punched in the
happened-
face too by a girl. Doesn't give a no one gives a shit. You're gonna deal with it.
No, I ended up calling the police on him, and
Maybe
in
give me a shit.
California, it's like they prosecute automatically anytime it's a domestic violence case.
Really?
Yes. So like I was dodging the DA. They were calling me, and then one day I was at work and two sheriffs showed up at my job and were just like, well, with the DA, and it's like, look, you're subpoenaed. You have to testify in court if it gets to that.
Against him.
If it gets to that.
Yeah, I
but
get it, I
like
get it.
he decided to plead not guilty, and so I
They
ended up
always
having
do.
to,
They always
it was like a
fucking do. Yeah, fucking
asshole.
assholes.
So then I end up having to testify with an actual jury, and like I got cross-examined. They played the tape and everything. Like
Holy
the 911
shit.
tape. I was crying. It was intense.
Jesus.
Did he go to jail?
He got probation.
Or at the very least, yeah, he got something.
He got
out.
he got found
And
guilty.
something on his
He
record
got
of like, if you
probation.
do this
Did you
again,
have
you're gonna
to-
full sure go to
Did
jail.
you have to get a restraining order?
There was a 3-year restraining order that was.
Did he
against him.
violate it though?
It happens automatically through the court.
No, did he violate it?
He
is what
violated
He's
it.
violated. No, he didn't. No.
Okay.
Yes.
Was he? I guess the last question for this, because I know this is a deep subject.
No,
Obviously,
it's
it's
fine.
deep fucked up shit.
It was. This
Was he
like,
a comic?
He was not. This was
Oh.
like maybe 8 or 9 years ago, like
Yeah, I
in
figured you were young.
LA. when
Yeah.
I was
Okay.
when I was younger. But he moved to New York, and then I moved to New York. We ran into each other. Yeah, on West 4th Street. Like I was like
Oh,
on my way to like a bar or show or something.
Hey, I'm gonna
like,
go be gay.
and then
what
like
the
I just
fuck?
saw him and just like, oh shit, like yeah. But it was kind of like a full
Shit.
circle moment, and
Yeah.
he apologized, and
And you were like,
Did you-
I
you-
gotta go.
You accepted it, but you were like, you still hit me, idiot. Like you still.
I mean,
How many
at
times
this
he hit
point,
you? Honestly, I know
a-
it's hard to talk about, but
a
like,
lot within a 2-year time period.
Really?
Like, not like it wasn't like I was getting hit like every day.
more
but,
than
like,
I know, but
maybe-
it's like one of
You
those things. That,
More than
literally
10.
interview this like the opposite of the way they train domestic violence counselors because abuse can also be emotional and mental. So
I
you
know, hold
never
on.
ask the person how many because it's like a quantifier. Like, do you really think you were abused?
no,
though?
no. I'm
Right,
not saying it
no,
negatively. I'm
it
telling you, as
was-
someone who has been, and I'll leave mine for last, but I've been physically abused as well by a partner, emotionally and verbally.
I'm not saying.
Right, and it
you
I'm just saying,
haven't.
and it's psychologically
I'm
damning,
just saying
isn't it?
it sounds to me like you need
Fine,
some
fine.
therapy.
How many? Okay, I'm very like, I'm
Just
not.
how
It's just how
you-
I ask questions for anything. I'm like, you ask real questions. You're supposed to like. That's what like. Okay.
I mean,
Do
as,
you feel
as a
like-
relationship got throughout the 2 years, as it progressed, it got more frequent.
Mm.
It wasn't always like it started out that one time happened, and then we were good for like maybe a month, 2 months, something like that, and then
Which is how it works.
something else happens, and then
It
happens
always
again.
builds up
That's
slowly.
what I was
isn't it?
saying,
By
like
the-
how it was insidious. And for
Exactly.
me, it got it like sped up like a freight train after the hospital. That was when it was like, whoa.
No one mentioned it. No one like talks about that part. We're like how slowly it builds up.
Yeah.
At first they
Yeah.
call you stupid and then call you an idiot and they're like, yeah, you fucking moron. And then after a while it builds, right? They start screaming at you and shit. That's what no one understands is that pain.
Right.
And you can't say shit to
And it
anybody.
wasn't he wasn't as verbally abusive, but more
Okay.
like he would be totally fine until you would like do some coke and then get all crazy. that was, like-
there it was.
Kind of the quantifier.
That's still
of,
not
like,
an
I know it's not an
excuse.
excuse,
It's not- it's
obviously.
not- it's not an
excuse.
I
It's
know,
not,
but as
it's not.
someone who's still in intensive therapy for my abuse, I'm just being like, oh, and this is what we say.
right,
Because
right,
I
that's not an excuse.
I have
exactly.
to constantly remind myself, too, that it was abuse and that I
And it was abuse, and because
Yeah.
it was definitely a cycle. He would hit me. We get into these crazy fights, like where he would be hitting me.
What do you think
And then
made you
I
put
would
up
get a
with it,
gift
though?
afterwards. Like
yeah.
there's always.
What do you think made you put up with it all those time? Honestly.
I at that time in my life I was, and I was in love with him. I really did love him. Like
Yeah.
I was really in love with
Love's
him.
a bitch, isn't it?
It is.
Fuck.
And you feel like I am trying to take this person as a full, complete, functioning person. They're not perfect, and so then you forgive them for things because I would want to be forgiven for certain things if just in general.
Of
like,
course,
you
of
love
course.
them.
We're human beings. We fuck up.
We're human beings.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I met his family. He came to my brother's wedding.
Ah,
Like
fuck.
it was like we lived together. It was a real
Do
relationship.
you feel like if he got emotionally healthy today, let's just say that for example.
Well,
right?
he's married now.
Would you be
He is,
proud of him at least, or be like, hey, good for you, but I still hate you?
Stop asking
I-
these questions.
I don't-
What?
Well,
This is an important question to ask.
Well, I don't hate him. We're still friends on social media. He does yoga in Brooklyn, and he looks like he's very happy with his husband, and I'm happy for him. And
Good for you for being the bigger person.
Yeah,
honestly.
like
He's also probably beating the shit out of his husband. I'm just saying.
not necessarily.
Not necessarily true. He
Because
could've
I
gotten-
feel like every relationship brings out different things in different people.
When you're an
And-
abuser, you're always an abuser.
That's possibly true. That's possibly
Yep.
Say, I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
when you're an
possibly true.
abuser, you're always an abuser.
All right,
I
so
do.
Marissa, you clearly have an opinion on this. If you don't mind switching, if we don't mind switching over.
Yeah, no, that's
so
fine.
Marissa, how do you feel? What was your last abusive relationship?
Um.
Physically, emotionally, like verbally, whatever.
Oh, I've had it all. But
Join the club.
so I feel like I think that like you're more angling towards like a physically abusive relationship. So like that was college, and I had already broken up with him before he had actually attacked me, and so we were broken up for like maybe like 2 weeks or so. It was actually like my first. So like I had like lost my virginity to him, and so like we're at this party and we're playing, the card game Asshole.
Yeah.
So
Asshole.
Yeah.
So it's just like a card game, and then like the last player is the asshole, and the president gets to tell him to do shit or whatever. He was the asshole, I was the president, and he was like, oh, like, and I think like he said something like snide, and I was just like, oh, drink, and then he was just kind of like, oh, well, you know that I was the best you ever had, and I'm like, well, technically you're the only that I ever had, so I don't have a point of reference. And so then he's like, you virgin piece of shit, and then he like lunged across the table
Jesus.
and like he was choking me, and
Oh my
he
God.
like picked me up by my neck and he slammed my head into a television, and I cracked the screen of the TV with my head.
Holy fuck.
And
Jesus Christ.
I was passing out, and luckily there were some guys at the party that were able to pull him off of me, and I had some brain damage. I had night blindness for about 9 months.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Over a game of fucking asshole. Well, I
Yeah.
guess he won that round.
Yeah.
What did you do after? Did you call the cops or?
Yeah, like we had to call the cops because like Res Life was there, and they were like trying to restrain him. I pressed charges. I wasn't opposed to pressing charges, and like he had a rich family, and so like they were trying to kind of be like, oh well, this was just a scuffle and this wasn't anything. And like I
fuck
had,
you.
like I literally went to court with like my MRI readings and like at that point they didn't know if my brain damage was reversible or not. They didn't know if my night blindness was going to be reversible or not. Like, and when I'm talking about night blindness, like literally like the only thing I could see were like headlights. I had like really bad PTSD. I had I will never forget this. I had a motion sensor frog that I put in front of my dorm room door so that like if the door opened at all, it would ribbit to like wake me up. Cause like I couldn't sleep not knowing if someone was like trying to break into my room or not.
Jesus.
Because you couldn't see at all.
Yeah. If the lights were out, I couldn't see anything. And then any
that's
sort of
terrifying.
light at all was like almost like a starburst. So it's like even if I saw light, it was like a prism of light, and I couldn't see between like the fractions of light in between. It's like if you thought of just like a snowflake in night being illuminated, and that's the only thing that you saw were like just the lines of the snowflake. That is just literally the only thing I could see.
Oh, that's
Do you-
terrifying.
If you don't mind me asking, is this still permanent in you right now, or do you have some clarity?
I'm not 100%. I never got back to 100%. It's part of like why I don't drive, because like it's difficult for me to see at night, and I still will like if a light is very bright, it takes me. I feel like it takes me too long to recover from seeing light at night than it should to drive.
Right.
If that makes sense.
I understand.
Because like if you're driving and you have headlights coming at you, most people recover like within a couple of seconds. It'll take me a few minutes, and I feel like by that time I could be like driving into a wall, and I don't want to put other people at risk, which is like the honest answer. Because when people are like, oh, why don't you drive, I'm always just kind of like, oh, I'm just trying to leave a zero carbon footprint. But like
The truth is, you just can't.
the truth is, it's like it's very difficult for me to see
Yeah.
at night when I'm driving, and I don't want to be caught
What
somewhere.
about during the day?
During the day, it's not as bad. Like, I feel like my day vision is worse because like I'm older, but like my night vision was definitely the most impaired.
Again, but you're just 25, right? As we
Oh
all know.
yeah, exactly.
Plus, that's the best part about living in New York. is
You
don't
don't
need to drive.
necessarily have to.
You don't
drive.
That's like the
drive.
main reason why I won't leave.
That's
I
why
can't drive either.
When I moved here from LA, and it's like why I moved here from LA. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this is
But,
this is great. I don't have to have a car.
Yeah. And then my father ended up leaving my mother for that particular ex's mother's best friend.
Oh Jesus!
Oh, my God.
Wow, that is beyond fucked
Dramatic
up.
as fuck.
Yeah.
That makes me want to go beat the fuck out of your dad.
Well, I haven't talked to him since 9/11, but yeah. So like that was like, so I had this whole thing, and my ex, like, even though I had a restraining order against him, he was stalking me for about 3 years, and my mom was sick, and his parents had invited my parents out to a barbecue. My dad went to the barbecue, met my ex's mom's best friend,
would
and
your-
then ended up like divorcing my mother for this woman.
That is the most horrible story I've ever heard.
And then like while like my dad just kind of like up and moved out, and then like that's like maybe a month later.
Oh my
is
God,
when I
how
was
would
attacked.
you trust anyone again?
It's difficult. I mean,
Yeah.
I try, but it's difficult.
Yeah, you definitely have trust.
I mean, I try. I try. I can't. I'm not saying that
I did
was
mean that as
successful.
like an insult. I'm just like, Jesus, that's like
Yeah. It's
that's
not
breaking
easy.
so many borders and boundaries that should just be like naturally assumed.
Yeah. And you know, and then like it was like also weird because like he would be seen on campus, and campus security would call me and be like, okay, we saw his car, we don't know where he is.
Oh, that's horrifying.
And he would like camp out in the woods
my
of the
God.
campus.
Did he
Yeah.
go to the same school as you?
When we met, he
What
did,
the fuck?
But he
Yeah.
got thrown
and
out.
he got thrown out after
so
he
he
attacked
capped
me.
that anger and was
Do you know what
following
he's up
you.
to now?
From what I've been told, he lives out Midwest,
Oh, thank God.
but
Go ruin his life.
like
that.
you know, it was like literally like
on.
people would be like, oh, I saw him on campus or whatever, and like campus security would if I was going to like class or the cafeteria, like they would escort me. Like that was because like he had written also a bunch of like letters that he was gonna kill me and how he was gonna kill me and this and the other thing. And like just having like campus security just be like, we really
That's
can't
so
keep you
scary.
safe.
Right.
But the most we can do is just escort you to and from class in the cafeteria.
But then, like, while you're doing that, you're trying to get a degree, and that's just so much stress on a person. Like, I'm surprised you didn't get seriously ill or anything.
And it's
yeah.
it happens. Like that really happens. People do
Yeah.
kill. That's what my tattoo means. My cousin got shot in the head by her ex-boyfriend. Like that shit happens. People
Yeah.
say that they're gonna kill you. They really do that shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's a crazy world we live in, man.
So like I feel like the emotional abuse is just kind of like nice try, kiddo.
Right.
Uh,
This motherfucker's trying to murder me and shit.
It's like, have you ever had full night blindness for 9 months? Good luck with your strong words, pal. Grow a pair, bitch. Like,
But then you,
how many times are you gonna call me fat again in these pants?
If anything, I'm the emotional abuse of one shit. You shut the fuck up. Real quick.
If you weren't gay, you would enjoy these pants.
So Daniel, it's your turn. We have an abuse roundtable. If you want to talk about it,
He doesn't have a choice at this point because, like, he made us all talk about it.
right?
I'm sorry. I've never dealt with an abusive relationship. I apologize. That sucks for you.
Punk ass bitch. Right there.
Right. We all came.
I've
out.
had. So here's the thing. It's a little more difficult, and I'd hate to say it like this. I'm not trying to specify this, but when a man is abused physically or emotionally by a woman, it's a lot different because no one gives a shit. I hate to tell you guys this. Nobody, including police that I know firsthand, do not give a shit. Cops don't give a shit. The law doesn't give a shit. No one cares when a woman is beating you. There are men in shelters right now who are beat by women. Guys laugh at these guys. It's a common trope in comedy. We're like, oh, a woman beats up a guy. Everyone laughs. No one gives a fuck. People only give a fuck when a woman's being beat up.
well, that's not true.
No, it's 100% true. I'm trying to tell you, I know firsthand, it is 100% true.
So
No,
what happened to
don't.
you?
I'll tell you one abuse story. Not with the one person that definitely spun me out of control, but there was I had a roommate, and I'll tell you this whole story, and this is true because do you know Mikey Garcia? He's a comic, and he was there. He witnessed the whole thing. So I literally have a witness for this. So my roommates thought I lost a rent check because they gave me the money. I bought a cashier check, and I mailed it. And they were like, the landlord was like, we didn't get it yet. Where is it? What's the rent? Was the fucking rent? Was rent? And they were all like, what the fuck? What's going on right now? And I was like, I don't know. I'm sorry. I was in the living room. I think I just didn't give a shit. I was like, I don't have it. I mailed it. I'm waiting. I can't cancel the cashier check. Don't worry about it. When I walk to my bedroom, they start screaming. These two girls, these two like women that one of them is a hood bitch. So she is a big bitch. I'm not exaggerating this. She was way bigger than me at the time.
Okay.
She's like 5'8", 5'9". She's got weight on her. She could push me around.
Right.
And this other chick was more fit. She was very strong. She's cute. So they both start screaming at me, which are their verbal abuse. Let's be honest. That's what that is. They start screaming at me. I say, I don't know. I flip out. I was like, I can't deal with this. And I start walking away. She yokes me by the back of the neck. She slams me around. And I fucking flip out. And I run to my bedroom. I close the door. And this bitch kicks the door down. And she starts screaming at me and fucking just starts slamming and fucking throwing shit around. And I think that was the moment I realized, like, women are just as bad as men. I hate all these white people talking about, like, oh, women are they're nonviolent. It's bullshit. It's not true. I'm sorry to tell you. I'm sorry. I just sound like a dick, like one of those, like, misogynist assholes. I've seen violence by women more in this last year than I have any other time.
Anytime you put it as a versus, like sex versus sex thing, like
fine. I have been slammed around by the opposite sex.
But I also feel
more
like this
times
isn't
than
a
last
relationship thing. Like, I feel like you were asking us about abusive relationships, and this is like, although I feel like I understand in some degree that, yes, like a roommate relationship is
Right.
like, but that is not the same as being in like a romantic relationship. With
One
someone
time,
that's abusive
okay,
to you.
so we're dating.
Either of these women that were in the original.
This person I'm dating.
Okay, so this is a different story.
This is a different story. This one time I'm dating, and this is within 6 months of that other story too. And we're dating, and we're in the car, and she had a bad day or something. So bad shit happened. And she's bigger than me. I like dating tall women, bigger women. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know why.
You're the
I
type.
do. And then she says to me,
How tall are you?
5'6".
Okay.
I'm like 5'7". I tell people 5'7", but it's like 5'6". Whatever. Shut up. I'm just having this.
It's okay. I'm 5'7". So
I'm 5. Actually, legally speaking, I'm 5'6.5". That's my exact legal height.
Okay.
It's 5'6.5". But I tell her it was 5'7". Let me round up, all right? It's having it, goddammit. My shoes fucking made up.
You can do it. You can be
And then
5'8"
she's,
if you
so
want to
she's
be.
driving, and she's having a bad day, and I'm just quiet, and I don't know what to say. And she turns over, and she fucking slams me in the fucking chest. Slams. For no reason. I didn't say anything. I was quiet, and she goes, with all her force.
Oh.
All the force in the world. She's not a little bitch. She's fucking strong. She did that, and I was like, and I remember her telling me, she's like, you looked at me like you wanted to punch me back in the face. And then she said to me, if you would have done that, I would have told everyone. That was her threat to me after physically assaulting me. She was abusive, verbally, emotionally. She was the most abusive people I've ever met in my life. And I'll never forget that because it just came out of nowhere. I didn't do anything to cause it. I was just there for her when she was having a bad day. And I think that's what abuse is.
Yeah, it always.
It's fucked up, isn't it?
Comes out of nowhere.
It comes out of nowhere. It's in your fault. But somehow you get psychologically fucked up in the head. I picked up a really bad, like, something. I had to start going to trauma counseling because of this bitch. I had so many more stories than that. But that's the story I always relate. Like, this is the story. This is what caused it all. I think that was the moment I should have got. Because I said at that point, I was like in the car, and I was like, pull the fucking car over. I tell her, pull over. I'm getting out of the car. And I unlock it, and I get the car open. I open the door a little bit because I was doing that thing. I wanted her to be like, "Don't get out of the car. I'm sorry." But she never said sorry. She
They
didn't
never
say,
do.
They never do. She never said, "Don't get out of the car." She never said, "I'm sorry." None of that shit. And then I opened it and I closed it. And then she said to me then, she's like, "Yeah, well, if you would have left the car, I would have known you didn't really love me." Some shit like that. And I think that was the part I fucked up. Because I should have seen it right there. That was the first huge, and there was more. One time we were dating, before I started courting her or everything, that we were first starting dating, she calls me up and she says, "Someone said to me such and such." And I say, "No, that's not true." Like, what are you talking about? It's a lie. And she's like, "Okay, good. I was just testing you." She did that to me. And I think that was the real moment. I was like, the violence part was the moment I should have stepped away. But the first part, I was like, that was weird. She really testing me?
Well, the violence part, you should always. That's.
But you don't see it. You don't see
and
it.
It happens out
It's
of
so
nowhere.
weird,
and
isn't it?
So fast that like.
Also, I'm a dude. She's a woman. I should be allowed to be like, "Fuck you. I'm tougher than you." But they're not, because I can't hit her back. It's not like I'm fighting another guy. You could have fought you could have fought him. In theory, you could have fought your boyfriend back.
I did.
Socially speaking, though, you were allowed to.
By the end, I did. By the
I'm
end,
not
we
allowed
actually,
to hit back. This is the difference. I'm not allowed
Actually,
to
my
hit
sister
back.
fucked him up.
Nice.
Yeah.
If I wish I had my sister back on my back. But you're not allowed to hit back a woman when you're a dude. And I think there's a lot more, I'm pretty sure, based on my experience alone personally, there's much more cis males that are assaulted by women that don't come forward because they feel like they're come off as cowards if they do. And I think that's the real problem.
I agree. It happens.
Think of all the guys. There's a bunch of dudes in abuse shelters and stuff like that. There must be so many much more that just didn't come forward and talk about it because they're afraid to. And it sucks. It sucks that like the peaceful sex or like these white women are always like posting like, "Oh, white women aren't like women aren't nice. That's fine." Fuck you. That's not. I've seen enough.
I do kind of feel like there's more abuse that happens in female relationships, like lesbian relationships.
Yeah, but who's the first one to swing in a fight? Women, every time. When you have an argument with your girl, who's the first one to throw a punch? Every time it's women. Every single time.
That's really dismissive after
That's
Marissa
not
just admitted
dismissive.
she has night vision problems.
It's not dismissive. I'm telling you like something my personal thing. Like I've seen it multiple times.
I've never hit a guy, even if they have asked me to hit him. Like,
I might hit Daniel in a second. No,
like,
So you're willing to admit you would assault me?
No, back to the roommate situation though.
No, but, like, that's the thing,
a different
like-
situation because
Yeah, but I'm trying to share something for real. Like fine, forget that last sentence I just said. But like, legitimately, it's difficult to deal with as a guy. You're like, what the fuck? Someone I love hit me.
Oh, it's so different
so
as a
odd.
woman. It's like
It's the same shit for both sides. That's what I'm trying to say. It does suck, but I think socially, kind of, I'm not allowed to talk about it.
neither are
'Cause
women.
people think I'm a
Especially
pussy.
if you're in a religious.
Yeah, but you have more resources than men do.
Okay, I'm done with this.
I-
Where it's not a gender competition. It's like if
It's
you're
not, you're
abused,
right.
you're abused, and every victim deserves the same amount of attention. That's
well,
it.
I think this
You
kind of
keep
goes
doing
back
it like black versus white instead of black and white. Like it's
well, like so.
offensive.
So like I'll say for instance, like it was a statistic that I had read about sexual abuse in the military, and so like we always like think about that there are I can't remember the exact number, so like for this particular conversation I'm pulling my numbers out of my ass, but like let's say for instance there are 15% of women in the military that are sexually abused. And there might be like, let's say 8% of men in the military that are sexually abused.
Mm.
But just by the sheer number difference between men and women, that 8% of men might actually end up being like 300,000
more.
people. And that 15% of women might actually be 100,000 people.
Right.
And that they don't really address the sexual abuse of men in the military as much as they talk about the sexual abuse of women in the military, because a lot of guys don't want to admit that they're being
No.
sexually
Yeah, yeah.
abused.
And especially
And-
military.
And especially in the
Military.
military. But
In
that,
general
like,
as well. Too.
yeah,
But,
like,
yeah.
in general.
and
It's that
then-
Dave Chappelle joke. You ever heard it? Is it
No.
the Laugh Store? It was online. He's like, there's a serial rapist up and down California, and 3 men came forward. He's like, if 3 men came forward, there must have been at least 100 men that were raped. Because
Yeah.
no guy would ever be like, I got raped. So you're like, oh yeah, where were you all night? You're like, I was fucking your sister. All right, I'm out of here. Like that was his thing.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Men never would admit weakness. It's a very different social stigma for me. I'm sorry, it's not a competition. You're right, and both of you have dealt with real pain, and I get it. No one ever fucking abused me to the point of
I just
intense psychological damage. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to talk down. I'm just
no,
like saying
more
I think that there's no
just
resources
feel
for
like
men.
upset because you're a personal friend of mine, and the way you're handling this whole situation to me sounds like you should be handling it in therapy and not on a podcast. Like,
Oh no, I had to go to fucking 3. Something that got me
I-
tight is I had to go to 3 therapists about this.
Like you sound very
Two-
aggressively still pissed off and still hurt.
Yeah, of course. You're talking about old trauma. Of course it's gonna piss you off. Wouldn't you be mad? Aren't you mad still?
Yeah, but I'm not like lashing out as much, you know? Like when I addressed my abuse, I wasn't like, but you don't understand what I've been through, you know? Like it's like
Fine, fair enough. My stigma definitely stems from the fact that I feel like men aren't given enough resources for this. Like male rape is not something that's ever fucking talked about. We're not given the same resources. I had to go to 3 different trauma therapists, 2 women and 1 man who finally sat down with me and talked about it. 2 women who brushed me off completely. I got real tight about. They were like, "Oh yeah, whatever, it's just a woman hitting you. That's it." Who very, very flippantly pissed me off. That's why it's a very deep. Just like how I talk about race, it's something that's very deeply connected to me. I'm like, yeah, it's painful, bro. What the fuck do you want to say?
But I also feel like men don't necessarily. I feel like they don't necessarily know how to cope with the fact of sharing this information. So like I've had
true, too.
an ex-boyfriend that he was molested when he was a child, and it was a neighbor of his, and the neighbor was trying to take his younger brother. He had already been molested by this guy, and he knew if his younger brother went with this neighbor that his younger brother was going to be molested. So he's like, no, I'll go with you. And so he kind of just like he jumped on the sword for his brother because he knew that if his younger brother went with him, that this guy was going to molest his younger brother. And to protect his younger brother, he's just like, no, he's not going to go with you. I'll go with you.
But women do the same thing.
But I feel like once he told me this whole story, he could not deal with me anymore. It was like,
Ooh.
I still to this day, I feel like he is like the only love of my life that I've ever had. And that like I was 100%.
Oh, because of the amount of shame.
Yeah, and
But what
because like I knew that what happened, and then he was just like, well, like I knew that this was gonna happen to me. Like, am I gay because I went with him? And I'm like, no, like you love your brother, and you just were trying to.
Was he a
save it.
minority too? Was
But
No, he was Irish.
That also happens to me with my more traumatic rape. Like, I just think there's so much shame. I just don't think it should be genderized. And I like agree.
And you're right. I agree with
And
you 100%.
actually, the
you're
place
right.
where
We're both, like, in the end,
the
you're-
place where I went to, all 3 of the places that I went into that helped me get out of my relationship were anti-violence centers. It wasn't women's shelters. It was anti-violence. And the only reason why they have women's shelters is because some women are so abused they become afraid of men. And that can happen to men too, yes, but you can go to these anti-violence shelters and you can tell them, I'm now afraid of women, and they'll give you a male counselor. Like, there is support out there. It's unhealthy to tell people there's not support. It's just about overcoming your shame and finding it.
But you understand the stigma behind it. There's a reason dudes kill themselves more than women. Like, we're just not allowed to talk about this stuff because we seem weak. And I hate to tell you this. This is just how it works. You're not allowed to say anything because if you do, you're a weak person, especially as a minority. I'm a Hispanic male, dude.
Yeah, you have it the worst.
I'm not allowed to express emotion. And we're not. Is you're a fucking black dude. Like, it's not. You're not allowed. Even like you're not allowed to express any emotion. My mother used to beat me when I cried because she said, "What the fuck are you crying for?" She would get angry when I cried. You don't get that part.
I had that. with both my parents.
Yeah,
I
but
ran away when I
most
was
white
15 and
people
lived in a
don't.
fucking car.
I get it.
A
Most
lot of white people do. Half of my friends are dead,
That's
dude.
suburban whites. That's the issue I'm dealing with right now with you.
All right. You're trauma competing, which means you haven't dealt with your trauma. It's unhealthy.
I'm not trauma competing.
Yes, you are.
I'm trying to bring up a real stigma. That's the point I'm trying to bring up. Forget the trauma. I'm good about that. I'm trying to tell you, this is something that minorities deal with a little harder than people who are American, because our culture tells us
You're
we have
American?
to be a certain
What do
way.
you-
What?
I think he's trying to say, like, culturally, as a Latinx man, that there's a lot of quote unquote machismo in his culture, that men are supposed to be dominant, and that, like, if you are not a dominant male, that it's stigmatized. And that if you are trying to express the fact that you're having emotions or that these things are bothering you, that then it's like there is like additional trauma to trying to express this.
But there's no culture where that isn't true. As an Italian or a Christian or whatever, what I'm saying is you can't narrow it down to like, but because I'm this, it was worse. It's like, no, it's bad for everyone. It should never happen to anyone, and that's it.
And I'm not disagreeing with you, because I feel like this
Right.
is a patriarchal response to kind of just being like, well, I'm a man, and because I'm a man, people don't understand or allow me to be abused.
Yeah, it's
Right.
internalized
And that's true.
misogynism, which everybody has to deal with. I
Right.
have it too. But what I'm saying is you should never ever go into exploring trauma, and whether it's on a radio show or in therapy with like, well, I had it this way and you have it that way, because in reality you've never been in the other
I know,
person's
fine,
shoes.
And you're right, fine, fair enough. Like, you're not, and Tiana, I've known you for a long time. That's fair enough to say. But you understand there's a very big social class economic divide between what whites and Hispanics and blacks deal with between each other. There's a big socioeconomic divide. And you're talking to someone who fucking like was raised so poor, he fucking had to eat cereal that had roaches in it as a kid. So you're not,
You don't know where I've been.
I have actually. We
You
both know each
just
other well.
talked about my fucking last apartment.
I get it.
Okay.
All right.
Oh my God, this is actually really good. I like that we're talking about this.
I
There's
mean,
a point.
if we're
common
gonna be playing the
sense.
Poor Olympics, I was raised on ramen.
That's what I'm saying. It's not a
Nice.
fucking
I was
competition.
I know, and it's not you, but it's white people in general. How about that? Do you ever feel like that? Don't you feel like that sometimes too?
No.
Why?
Because I grew up in a very poor white community, and most of my friends died before 30 because of it.
Yeah, and I grew up in a very fucking poor Hispanic community.
Right.
And
So
I-
maybe it's the economy and our nation, and not the color of our skin, or like
Yeah,
our.
but they have these guys in a suburban culture who don't understand what poverty's
I
like.
still think you're blame placing instead of facing your trauma. It's really easy to be like, well, like, look at how I've done it. I've done it my whole life with rich girls. Oh, this rich girl, fuck you. You had it easy because you're rich.
and
You're born rich.
There's also a real point to that too.
Yeah, but you're never
wrong.
gonna like deal with your own shit if that's instantly where you go.
I think the big difference between both of you, though, is you've been in therapy. You've been going to therapy. Have you been going to therapy?
I just started.
You just
Yes,
started.
and
so you guys are two different places.
and I'm getting
You
very frustrated because I really love Daniel, but I'm
Yeah.
actually incredibly worried about him right now.
But you
and
understand it on a different level.
is not
That
healthy.
he understands. He's just starting therapy. You've been doing therapy. You are at a different plane.
I started
Since
therapy
you're-
So,
5
like,
months ago.
I've been on and off of therapy since I was like 8, but like
Really?
yeah, because I had to go through anger management when I was young. Anyhow, but like so I kind of see it from both sides, and I can understand your frustration because you feel like he is he's playing blame aerobics in some regards, and I'm not going to discount that.
And fine.
However,
you're right. No, I
however,
accept that. I accept that.
however,
I accept that.
I feel like you are discounting the fact that there is a divide that is race based that can also cross an economic divide. So like, yes, you might have grown up in a very poor, I will say, for a population of non-color, so that we're not necessarily pinpointing, but like you might have grown up in this kind of environment. However, even though you might have grown up in an environment that was not as economically successful as other non-color peers, that and kind of going back to Daniel's thing, is that they still would not have experienced the same kind of plight that people of color have experienced. And so like although they might have had the same economic disparity, they do not have the same social
I never, ever,
No,
ever said that. What I'm saying is that
Well-
I'm being triggered right now, and that maybe that means I should like kind of walk off.
No,
Because this is
no.
psychologically really hard for me to sit
You're
here
right,
and
you're
hear
right.
my
Wait,
friend
wait,
be like,
I'm sorry. I'm
It's
sorry
okay.
that
I don't.
Change.
I don't think it's a competition. I think
And-
we all
and I
need to
don't-
like face our own shit.
And I'm not saying that is a competition, but like I'm just gonna say, just like historically, if we take all of our personalities out of this right now, if we take Tiana out, Daniel out, Rodney out, Marissa out, and we just kind of put this on the map of history, and we say like right now, because like you're taking a population from Long Island that might be of non-color that has an opioid crisis. We're just going to take this population without any of us being involved or having any sort of emotional involvement in that. And then you take a population of color in Harlem that has a crack epidemic. Now you go and you have the population of non-color in Long Island with an opioid epidemic. They're sick. They need to be treated. They should not be treated like criminals. But then you go and you take a color population. They're all criminals. They all should be in jail. Like, and so this is something that if we take all of our personalities out of and we just look at it from a purely historical perspective, that this is something that I think shades our perspective individually when we put ourselves back into the situation, that where Daniel is saying, yes, you might have been from a non-color population, but your non-color population didn't have to deal with what my color population dealt with. And you were saying that, yeah, you're coming from a color population, but your color population is also dealing with what my non-color population has dealt with. And then you throw that on the lens of historical racism and bias, and this is where I think that the disconnect is happening. And I don't think that
I think the disconnect is happening in the fact that I am 6 months into therapy. I just buried one of my best friends very short time ago. I just got out of a 10-year super abusive, financially controlling relationship. And right now I feel like everybody's competing over who has it worse.
You're not.
And I'm not in a place where I can do that like mentally or healthy.
We get it. I'm sorry that I brought that up. I really am. It's not something, it's just like, something just popped in my head, all right? It's not a big deal.
Just anytime anyone frames it as like, well, you don't understand. Like, of course they don't understand. You don't understand. You don't, like, I don't understand Marissa's story. I don't understand Rodney's story. None of us understand each other's stories. They're all very difficult, and like, I can't really handle them right now because I care too much about you, and I really don't think you are actively seeking as much help as you should be. So I get a little frustrated. It's like a personal thing. I've known you for 10 years.
But what we all understand is that we have, over the years, grown together as people, as artists, as performers. We've all kind of connected in some sort of way. And what we understand is that each of us is hurting in some kind of way. And we might not be able to relate directly and one-on-one with the fact that you've had a 10-year abusive
No, I'm
relationship.
just in the place.
I get this, but what we can all agree with is that like we care about each other, we care about our growth, we care about moving forward. And I think that is like what
The hurt is the common denominator.
yeah, the
in
hurt,
all of this.
and that's what makes
That's
us
the common
funny.
denominator.
But
in
I
all of
can't. I
this.
can't deal with hearing my friends hurt, and I suck that way.
not
because
hurt.
I was raised very much the same way. But when I hear that, I just want to protect and make sure I can fix it. And when I can't, I get frustrated. And then when I feel like there's like
You're not Coldplay, you can't fix it.
I'm a terrible fan.
I'm gonna pretend like I didn't hear that.
Right, exactly. Wait, we talking about music and we're gonna change the subject. You guys know Missy Elliott dropped an album last night?
Seriously?
She dropped the EP.
I know
yes.
fucking sort of fucking
five
what's her face
songs, and it's
too.
sick.
Taylor Swift talking.
Taylor Swift did too. But come
Fever,
on
right?
now, Missy Elliott, 5 new songs in the video.
Yo, this shit got real as shit, didn't it? Oh my
did. That
god,
was
fuck!
crazy.
I like that shit.
Yeah.
That's half the fun of a podcast. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah, 'cause sometimes it's crazy and funny. We talk about dicks, and sometimes you get deep.
Yeah, like sometimes it's just Rodney
We
talking
can just
about a
delete-
glory hole.
We can delete the second half of the episode if you want. That's fine. I wouldn't be against just deleting the second half of this episode or whatever. Would not be against it.
No, people gonna listen to this, and
Damn it!
The whole part about this situation is somebody's gonna listen to it, and people are gonna find healing regardless throughout everybody's stories because we're having the conversation.
Right.
That is the
honest
most
and it's
important,
real.
and it's honest and it's real, and that's the most important part. Is about having the conversation.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I don't think that anybody is trying to like part this as being like, enemies with anybody. Like at the end of the day, when this is all over, we still all love each other. We're still going to be doing shows together. We'll probably still be seeing each other for the next fucking 10 years. Is the bottom, the long and the short of it.
I actually
Or
plan on
right,
quitting
or
tomorrow,
longer.
so it's like fine, whatever.
What?
I'm gonna become a circus freak.
Aren't you that already?
Damn it.
I mean, no, he's a comic. We're like lower than circus freaks. Like
That's true.
there's
Yeah,
like
they
the
probably
bi-
get paid at least.
Right,
Yeah.
right. The
I mean,
circus
the
freaks get
fucking-
paid. We work at what comes out before the circus freaks.
the
like-
bearded lady at least gets food. Like
You think she does though?
Wait,
For
we
real?
get
yeah,
paid.
they got
We
they,
gotta suck off the bearded lady.
Yeah, I feel like the bearded lady at least gets food and probably free tattoos. I feel like that's what they do for a bearded lady. Like us, it's just kind of like, go rip open your wounds in front of everybody. We're like fucking Wolverine without the fucking armor. It's like, I'm gonna tell you this dick joke so you can't see how much my father never loving me hurt. Like,
Damn. It's very true, though. Very true. But, it's part of being a comic. It's what we do.
Like I've never actually met a funny comic that had a healthy life.
Right. Like, no, it's all about the pain. You get up there, you talk about the pain.
It's true.
You talk about,
I mean, have you ever met like a funny, well-adjusted comic?
No, every funny comic I've ever met, every comic I've ever met that like I actually appreciate is some broken motherfucker that gets up there and like really talks about their real shit.
And if they're really, really funny, they're probably like fucking tried to off themselves. Like that's like how,
Like,
like that's just how this shit works.
yeah, no, for real.
But I don't know.
No,
So
a
like
little bit more time.
I know like Tiana was like talking about like the online dating before. I am also doing the online dating. So like now, okay, I feel like I'm like kind of like a big piece of shit because I canceled a date with someone tomorrow to go out on another date with someone else that I thought was cuter.
Oh, I hope he's not listening.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like
You
so like
have to do that.
You had a reason, though.
like he sent okay, so like the first guy that I had the date with, we were talking or whatever. We planned the date, and then
Comic love.
he sent me a dick pic, like it's literally 3 days before our date, and it's just kind of like, if you actually want to like go on a like date, like why are you sending me a dick pic? So like I canceled the date with the dick pic guy to go on the date with the non-dick pic guy.
But
Am I a
question,
piece
oh
of
my
shit?
God.
Like,
You're a
my-
cisgendered man. Do you send out
Since
dick
when?
pics?
No, ew, gross. I think I learned back a few years ago. I was talking to, and I could name drop this person, Eric Aspira. We were just having a good chat about it, and I was just like, yeah, so like, I don't know how that subject came up. We were just chatting about it, and she was like, yeah, dick pics don't do anything for me. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, I don't like them. I was like, oh, really? She's like, yeah, women don't really enjoy
What
them.
do
I
you
was like,
do with a
women-
dick pic?
and then afterwards, I was just like, oh, I'll just stop sending them. I think that was the point. I was like, oh, this doesn't.
Oh, because you were sending them before.
I had
How do you
sent
send a dick pic? Do you just
when they ask, I guess.
Right, because
Even now when they ask one, I don't really send one. Even when they ask one, I'm like, no, it feels weird. You don't really get sexual excitement off this. It's like, just meet me in person. I'll fucking fuck you or something. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I didn't ask for this dick pic. It was more like he was like, "Oh, I hope you like thick ones," and I was just like, "What do you mean by thick?"
But
and then
you
he
showed
just,
it to me. It wasn't even that like.
Was it girthy at least? Was it girthy?
It wasn't a bad. It was at the wrong angle. Like there's a certain angle that you have to take a dick pic at, and you laying down with your phone.
It was like purple and ashy.
Get your ashy ass dick out of here. Throw some lotion on that shit.
Like no,
Goddamn.
he needs some Jergens for real though. But it was like purple and ashy.
What's
And
wrong
then
with
it
a
was
purple
like
dick?
it wasn't like anything that I was just kind of like, ooh, I need to sit on that. It was.
But
just,
that's because he took it from the wrong angle. Like you couldn't.
Yeah, but
see.
even if it was huge, you probably wouldn't be like, yeah.
No, 'cause
I wouldn't
it was
been.
at the
No,
snake
but,
eye
like-
angle. Like you don't want to see the head. You don't want it looking at you. You want to see like the actual dick. Not
Would you like
dick
the- I don't
focusing
even-
at you?
I feel like
Things
he,
are
like,
gross. You look
I
at
feel
them.
like
Oh, I love-
if
yeah.
if he saw the dick pic and it didn't do anything for him,
Right, because I see dick pics all like I'm on
that's
Grindr
like his second
all
job.
the time, all the time. That's like, hey, what's up? What are you doing? Dick pic.
Yeah, and
Few
like
messages,
I'm not really
just like that. Sometimes it's one message, dick pic, and you're like,
Yeah. But like it was just kind of like I felt kind of shitty that like I was canceling a date that I already had.
he sent you an unsolicited dick pic.
But he sent me an
No,
unsolicited
no,
dick pic,
that's
so,
something
like,
is like a no. It's a no
that ain't
for sure.
That's a,
Yeah.
What about T? You ever got one before?
Dick pics?
Yeah.
Unsolicited.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever get unsolicited vagina pics?
No.
Oh, it'd be
It never fucking
amazing. You
happens.
serious?
Wait, do you get
No.
solicited vagina pics?
No.
You don't ask for vagina pics, right?
No.
Do you ask for titty pics?
No. I'm not at that point in dating yet.
Okay. Oh, so
You've asked for a dick pic?
all the time. Like
You
I don't.
get unsolicited
I
dudes?
actually never ask for them. Guys will just say, "Hey, dick pic."
Ew, it's so weird.
So then I send it. I mean, but
I
they're
can't
probably not
imagine
listening
this
to this podcast. But you want to know the secret? You want to know a secret?
What?
I don't really send out my real dick pic. I found one on the internet. I Googled black dick and saved
How
it in
great
my
would it be to send a
phone,
white dick?
and I sent it. Even though one time I met this guy and he was like, "That's not your dick. That dick pic you sent, that wasn't your dick." And I was just like, "I'm a grower,
Not a shower.
not a shower, right? Like it looks,
Why don't we send more flaccid dick pics? Have you asked for a dick pic?
I
and they
wrote
guys
a-
send you
I
that?
got a
I've
bit
had
about
somebody
that.
send me a flaccid dick pic, and
you
nobody
send-
wants to
If
see
you
that.
send
Hell
a
no.
flaccid one, you should put it in a hot dog bun and put mustard on it, and
Ah,
then send it.
It's like
nothing
no
more
one wants to see that
unattractive.
turtle shit.
When
no
it's
one.
flaccid, it
Nobody.
doesn't go through the whole hot
You know how
dog bun.
sad it is, though?
Fuck.
You know how sad it is to that
It's just this
flaccid
little
dick
like
pic?
this little mushroom that's hanging out of these two like fucking camel jaws. It's like no.
Oh my god. They got the pubic hair all around it.
It's like this fro. You got this
No,
little
no, no,
sad
no, no.
mushroom.
You gotta,
like,
and then
no.
you got
Do you-
like
wait,
fucking
wait.
Joe Camel
No.
mouth.
Anyone
I've
here?
definitely
Okay,
had
so
that.
you guys ever have guys trim their bush? Guys do it.
Have I
They
d-
should
done it
trim
for
their
them? They
bush.
should trim their bush.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
should.
Yeah,
trim their bush.
It depends on.
well, let's say
well, it depends on
edit.
the size of
I
your
don't
dick
know.
too, though. I feel like.
What? Why?
No, but like I hooked up with this
'Cause
guy
if you-
recently that didn't, and it was just kind of like
Yeah, a lot of hair.
yeah, and it's just like this is like it's distracting having all this like
But when I give a
bush
blowjob,
in my
sometimes I
nose
like
hair.
to have like a
Like-
little bush in my nose hair, like the smell.
I don't
Can I tell you
don't
what-
I don't want bush
Wait,
in
wait.
my
A
nose.
little other thing. I
wanna go
like
Manson.
hairy pussies. Is that weird to say? I
No.
love them. You know why? I know I'm fucking a woman. That's why. I'm not just banging some like girl. I'm banging a woman.
I like
with
hairy butts.
Bush. I like that shit.
I like hairy butts
It's
too.
hot. You're like fucking hairy bush. I like that shit. I don't give a fuck. Why's the stigma with fucking hairy pussies bad?
That's another thing too. They do asshole pictures.
What?
Yeah, on Grindr, people are like, can you just take a picture of your hole? Can you send me a picture of your hole?
Ew, really?
Your little
Yeah.
balloon knot.
No.
Yeah, no, oh no, that's no.
Your
Wait,
little
like
balloon
now,
knot.
do you have like? But like, do you
I
have?
don't
like,
have an asshole picture. No.
Is there like a stigma of guys that don't bleach their assholes?
I mean, well, I don't really care about if your asshole's bleached, but like, sometimes guys get fisted and their assholes kind of like.
And
Come
then
out
it
and,
looks
like-
like raspberries. and
Yeah, schnozberry asshole.
The schnozberry tastes like assholes. And the assholes are like raw.
No, I've got this guy. He lives in my neighborhood. He keeps sending me a picture of his
Smooth.
butthole, and it's like
Like all prolapse.
Whoa.
Come on,
yeah.
chill the fuck out.
prolapse. I can see all the way to your nostrils. Like the fuck.
It's like they got fisted by the 49ers.
Yeah, like no, I don't want that, bruh.
All right, so we should wrap this shit up. But getting fisted by the 49ers is how we're ending this.
Fisted by the 49ers.
Before we go, though, just everyone tell the folks how can they follow you on social media? What projects are you working on next? I will start with you, Rodney Daniels.
I am Rodney Daniels on everything: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can always catch me here on Big Talk and Brewskis every Friday night, 6 to 8. I'm going to be hosting at the Broadway Comedy Club tonight, right here in New
I'm
York
gonna swing
City.
by. What?
Yeah, you gonna come by. Hey,
Swing by.
Marissa gonna be there too. And October 3rd, Gina Sartoria, my first show, me producing in Brooklyn.
Fuck yeah.
Nice.
Congrats on that again.
Thank you.
Daniel Paraffin.
Tonight you can catch me at 10 o'clock at the Broadway Comedy. I'm gonna go right now down to another show so I can get on, and then I was talking about at 10 o'clock, and then tomorrow I don't know where I'm gonna be. I'm probably gonna go somewhere. Like as I said, I hustle for spots, so like shit like this, just kind of half begging. I'm like, oh come on, just come to my show, please. I have nothing else. I'm an old man.
Tiana Miller.
Tiana the Goblin on everything. TIANA, Unnecessary Robots, memes, and of course, Hard Times News.
Follow me on Twitter at Marissa Smith. Follow this show on Twitter at Big Talk and Brew. I'm going to be at Broadway Comedy Club for Fashionably Funny tonight, 10 p.m. Catch me at the Creek in the Cave on September the 5th.
Nice.
Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And remember, nobody has thoughts and prayers for David Coach. Have a good night.
Good night.